if you guys think I'm having a bad day, you should be a staffer at the Department of Education who's apparently in hysterics over the fact that Elon Musk and his DOGE nerds have stormed their building. This is from the Daily Mail. I just still can't believe this is like an actual publication. It's kind of made me laugh, but
terrified.
They were stormed.
Yeah,
Elon Musk
literal stormtrooper nerds came in, and they were absolutely terrified.
I actually wish they had dressed as stormtroopers. That'd be even funnier. This is from the Daily Mail. Elon Musk's nerd army stormed into the Department of Education on Tuesday and saved over $900 million because the Daily Mail hates everybody in this story, but has to point out that they saved money. Isn't that crazy?
They saved almost $1 billion in 24 hours.
And the Daily Mail called them nerds.
Yeah, like why? I don't know. I mean, kind of screw the Daily Mail. You know what I mean? Like it's a Daily Mail.
They're also not even from here. They're a UK publication.
It's UK.
And obsessed with their own government.
Why don't you worry about
the foreign invaders in your own country?
Can you imagine how great it would be if Elon Musk got literal like stormtrooper LARP outfits and put his agents in them and had them storm these buildings? Storm them. Oh my God, that would be so funny. And then you could record it. You could put it on YouTube and Rumble and everywhere else.
The thing is, the left would then be like, they don't even take this seriously. Look, they're in costume. Meanwhile, they're the ones who promote furries.
Well, the media, by the way, the funniest part about this to me is the media, like all they're left with. I was watching CNN last night because I'm a glutton for punishment. And like, they're like, there was one exchange, I think it was on CNN or MSNBC. There's an exchange with like, well, they were talking to some former governor. And like, it was actually only, how Elon said it was 59 million wasted on migrant hotels? Well, it was only 19 million. And it was like, they were waiting for like, burr, 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 like an air horn. I was like, bro,
is that a
19 million's not good either. Like, what the hell? That's not an own.
Do you think it's more like it's such large amounts of money that they stop being able to process how much it is? Like they only see the 19 versus the 56?
Yeah, almost.
Sometimes I think the Trump administration, Elon and others, they wax hyperbolic in order to get them to admit the real number. So it's like, with that, yeah, exactly. It's smart. With that case, it's like, oh, it's, $10,000 trillion. Oh, no, it was only $1 trillion.
Then they look double dumb.
You just admitted to the fact that you wasted $1 trillion.
Yeah, and he double dunks on him because it was bad enough when he said it first, and then they're correct. Their fact check is equally as bad. Like they're just as humiliated.
With the Department of Education, do you think that there's any way to convince the left that this actually makes sense and is good? Because the way it's presented is like every time Trump says Elon's going to look into the Department of Education and misuse of funding, the panic is immediately like they're trying to make our kids stupid and take away books from children or something.
Right.
Is there a way to spin this to make the left understand, or is it just like constantly pointing out how much waste there is that will win them over?
I don't think that there's any way to construe it that the left would understand. They think the Department of Education is basically, that is education, even though it's miseducation. Right. So trying to cut it in any way is automatically going to draw ire. There's no way to explain to people, hey, the Department of Education is not actually responsible for educating your kid.
Mm-hmm.
Since 1977, when it was the 70s when they created the Department of Education, to 2025, okay, that's 50 years. Our national scores on math and science have not improved at all.
They've gone down.
Yeah.
Sadly.
So it's like, if you're fighting for that, you're an actual moron. There is no, like, I can't help you. I don't know, left, right, center, up or down. I can't help you. If you can't understand something as simple as that, it's not like they could even point to like a hockey stick from 2020 to 2025. Like, see, we're making headway. Like, your job is to we spend more than any other nation in the world on education. We're not even in the top 10 in most categories. Like that, like put that on the refrigerator next to the RFK. Don't eat that thing.
Are we even in the top 10 on English at this point?
I don't think so. It
I
was
think we aren't for across the board. It's been a steady decline, right? It's not like we go back and forth. It's consistently we are dropping, and our standards seem to get lower and lower for our students.
almost 40% of 8th graders can't read. 8th grade. Like, I don't even know. I forget what the exact percentage was. I thought it was like in the high 30%. There was that Bill Maher clip when he was on with Byron Donalds. And it was like, Bill Maher was like, well, even Bill Maher, he has a bit of TDS, he's like, well, what do they do? He was, I want to find this clip because it's pretty good. Here's a clip. Here, I'll just share it. I'm feeling protective now. Okay. So here's this clip. And Lamar's a liberal.
The public is aware of the mismanagement, the improper payments.
What about the Department of Education? Now, I don't know that much about it, but I've never read good things.
Yeah.
Rahm Emanuel, who I agree with on almost everything, here was a quote. He said, 1/3 of 8th graders can't read, and now he wants to close the department. And I thought, that's probably why they can't read.
I mean, it's hard to like argue with that. If a liberal is saying, oh, I'm a Department of Education, and you say, well, do you want kids to be able to read or not? You could end up with one of those, like, they're going to short circuit, like blue screen of death.
But since Elon Musk and Donald Trump have been talking about closing the Department of Education, which conservatives have been calling for off and on for a long time at this point, I mean, especially libertarians, when it became this public talking point under the Trump administration, then I saw all these articles come out where it'd be like, well, actually, the federal government isn't in charge of education, and actually they just support the structure. And it seems like the argument that they have used to defend themselves, like we need students to have whatever goals, is being undone by their counter argument, which is like, well, actually, the Department of Education isn't in charge of that. If it's not in charge of that, what are we doing here? Why does it have all this money and say?
Yeah, it's a great point.
I don't know how. I don't know how anybody could make I know that somebody could make an illogical argument for the Department of Education. I know that people can make appeals to emotion, which is literally all. Sorry, I'm looking at my shirt and I see that I shaved I shaved like before the show, and like I shaved my beard, and there's like all these little beard hairs all over me.
Don't worry, that's not even the worst thing that's happened today on this stream.
You just can't like. They can literally do it wasn't 100% bad. It was only 97% bad. And that's all they can do right now. They're literally screaming into the sky. And, they're like, oh, the judge comes out and is like, oh, you can't shut down USAID. 24 hours later. Oh, did you, you forgot to disclose that your wife received money for her NGO. Mm-hmm. Your wife's NGO is completely funded by the USAID. Conflict of interest much? And they're like, well, like it's just like
their arguments against the Department of Education remind me a little bit of their arguments against school choice, which is like everyone will agree that like students deserve better, that we want to have highly educated students, we want them to be successful. And then when states like Arizona has a school choice initiative, but I'm more familiar with West Virginia's Hope Scholarship Program. When they rolled up the Hope Scholarship Program, which lets people use money that they would have to pay in taxes to send their kids to right to private schools or to subsidize their cover the cost of homeschooling or whatever, the teachers union and the state sued, and they were like, you can't do this because you're taking money away from our schools and that's hurting everybody. So they're saying the status quo was bad, but also you cannot change the status quo at all. So what do you want? Like, who are you actually protecting in that case? It's clearly your own interest. It's not the students.
The schooling system is so bad that I think that we should start subsidizing homeschooling in general. Like,
I think Trump is mentioned that, didn't he?
Yeah,
He
I
said
believe
something about
so.
helping homeschool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you're acting as a teacher. Well, then you should get a stipend for that. It
I
should
think
be the
everybody
same as
agrees with
if
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, liberals don't agree because Orange ran bad, but other
And
than
it takes
that,
money away from
sane
the
people do.
schools. Like most schools in America, I don't know if you guys had this. I went to public high school and they were really big on like, you have to be on time and you have to be in attendance. And it's ultimately because like the number of students in the school per day dictates the
Matters.
budget. It's not
Yep.
about my educational outcomes. It's about the budget, which you could argue is for the overall wellness of the school. But if the school is not doing well, what does it matter if every student is on time? And I think it's Oklahoma. It's either Oklahoma or Nebraska. One of them has tried. It has argued that religious schools should be allowed to be included in some of the school choice funding because, especially if you live in a rural area, like you should have the option to send your kids somewhere else. You shouldn't be obligated to go to the public school because that's the only thing that the state is offering you. If you're paying for the money, it's the argument that parents should be involved in schools, and then at the same time the backlash from the school system itself being like, well, no, we know better than everybody else, even though we consistently have proven that we are not doing that well. It's such hypocrisy. It makes me crazy.
It's funny because parents should be more involved in schooling, but when they discovered that critical race theory was being taught in schools, all of a sudden, no, parents, go away. Just ignore that. Don't talk about it. Don't do anything about it. Don't worry, we're teaching your kids communism, but that's perfectly fine. Also, we've got a couple of drag queens over tomorrow. Parents don't need to be in attendance,
Right. When parents want to be involved, they're like, get out of here. You're oppressing your child. But then when they're not involved, they're like, well, you're the reason they're not doing well. It can't be us, the teachers union.
Exactly.
Yeah. The teachers, I try to be somewhat careful and not do the collectivism thing where it's like all teachers suck, because they don't. But all teachers unions do suck. Like they keep bad teachers. There's a law in Michigan, the teachers union, not a law. The teachers union stipulates that you cannot be fired as a teacher for being caught drunk at school until the fifth time.
The fifth? Why did they decide fifth?
Until the fifth time. You can show up drunk at work 4 times and never be fired, according to the Michigan teachers union. It's that
funny.
fifth time when you
Does
can't.
this extend to the bus drivers?
I don't know. You would think it should, right?
If they're
I think it
driving
shouldn't.
drunk, you got a bigger problem.
Yeah.
It was funny, actually. The principal of my old high school showed up drunk as a skunk to she was absolutely wasted, and she showed up apparently to the first person from my class to die. He died in a car wreck. She showed up drunk, and she proceeded to start crying, and she was clearly wasted and stuff like that. She got fired as a result of that. At least Vermont has some standards, unlike some states.
You know what's wild? I have a similar memory. My principal died when we were at school, and it's like it was when I was in elementary school. Back when I was a small school, so like all the kids knew. I still remember his name, Mr. Westby. Like I was a troublemaker, and so when I would get detention,
No surprise.
sometimes he would drive me home, which is like the ultimate punishment. Like you had to stay, and then the principal drops you off at home. But I remember there were definitely some teachers that were really questionable, and there were some school. I don't remember. I remember him dying, and I remember like we planted some tree or something in front of school. But I do remember there was some like hubbub about teachers who might have shown up drunk on like his day, and I don't get it. Even me who consumes too much alcohol, I don't drink and work.
What bothered me, I mean, when and if and what emotional circumstances teachers should show up drunk to school events, like that's a long conversation.
Yeah, right.
I grew up in Connecticut, and I remember a teacher telling me like, well, I have to, even if I don't want to be a part of the teachers union, I have to pay the dues to work in a public school. Like I have to be a part of it. That's part of the requirement, which is like to me, a hostage situation. I don't think
Yeah.
all teachers are bad. I think there are lots of really interesting teachers. I think there are lots of people who are genuinely invested in their students and education and whatever else. But I think the system that holds this all together is not good. And that's why when you see Elon Musk being like, hey, you guys are spending like crazy, or hey, I don't think actually any of this is working. When there is hysteria, you want to be like, but do you guys think it's working? Like, are you happy with all of the outcomes? And if you are, I don't know that you're actually working in the best interest of the students.
I didn't
That's
know.
the thing.
Go ahead.
Even liberals aren't happy with the current system.
But then when
we've
Elon
fallen
Musk is
from
like, let's fix it, they're like, no, how dare you?
Yeah.
we've fallen from virtually #1 in the world on attainment in multiple subjects to being like, we're kind of making it, despite the fact that we're paying more money into it. And it all coincides with the creation of the Department of Education. If the DOGE agents want to go in there and the people there are like, they're panicking, there's probably a reason for that.